Hi everyone, it's QuickyBaby and welcome back to World of Tanks. And seeing how today is Halloween, I'm going to show you the most scary of gameplay. And of course, it has to be in a self-propelled gun. It has been at least a year before I featured a self-propelled gun on this channel. And today we've got the pleasure of watching Marin / Bishop playing in the FV304. Now firstly, let me talk about how interesting I think it is that Marin is Marin / Bishop. Now I'm not sure if that is Marin's gamer handle before, or maybe they just loved the Bishop so much, or alternatively maybe they made a whole new account just so they could play the Bishop. But boy, has Marin played the Bishop, as they have 1,746 games played in the Tier 5 British self-propelled gun. And of course, once you've played a paltry 1,700 games in a Tier 5 self-propelled gun, you've probably got enough experience and maybe also enough skills built up inside the British self-propelled gun tech tree to jump up to Tier 7 and to play in the FV304. So let's talk about the Tier 6 British self-propelled gun. The FV304 is possibly my most hated vehicle in World of Tanks. I despise playing against this thing. It's really fast. It goes at 72 kilometers an hour with an incredible power to weight ratio of over 25. It gets around. It's got very short range, however. You'll notice that Marin is pretty much firing about 420 meters. Well, we can see exactly at the top of the reticle here as to how far the shells are going. And it's almost at the end of the shell's trajectory. And we can see that as the Cromwell reverses away from Marin, he's going to no longer be able to hit clean shells. I say that as he does 192 damage to the Cromwell. But there we go. That is the extent of the range. So it looks like this vehicle can fire 500 meters and no further. However, as you could see, if you can manage to get the vehicle within that 450 to 500 meter sweet spot, you can loop shells pretty much over buildings, and there's hardly any chance the enemy have to be able to hide from you. And also, when your shells are going up so high, they'll come down at a steep angle, and that will mean that they land on top of your tank and hit the weaker parts of your armor. Meaning that even though this vehicle doesn't have the best penetration, at only 28, that is enough to still do a substantial amount of damage. I mean, it was hitting the Cromwell for 143 and 192. Sometimes I'm doing that much damage in my Tier 10 self-propelled guns when I'm hitting, albeit reasonably armored tanks. So Marin, as we can see, has actually decided to put a self-propelled gun with a file, I guess nerfing the barrel on the back of their vehicle. That is very fitting for somebody who clearly is a very good self-propelled gun player if they've managed to get 3 marks of excellence. I think in my artillery, the most mark of excellence I've got was in an Object 261. I think I got 2 as far as I can remember. But that was only because I played on the day that the self-propelled guns were nerfed. And so all of the expected values for the self-propelled guns went way, way, way down, but I still had all of the pre-buffed damage games. And so, yeah, I kind of just cheesed one out. I couldn't even manage to get my third one in any self-propelled gun. So I'm just not really built for self-propelled gunplay. I like to think that I can play artillery, at least occasionally. I mean, you've probably seen some in the Best Moments videos. But no, I think I'll leave it to the professionals like Marin here to be able to rock and roll in the FV304. Alright, so in this kind of situation, Marin's just, absolutely clapping higher tiered light tanks. But with good map awareness here, Marin is getting back to, I guess, knock down a tree to be able to hide in a bush, hide in a tree, and avoid the Cromwell that is flanking through this map. Now, Marin's not in the best kind of matchup here, but maybe they can save the SU, or maybe they can just punish the Cromwell there. Oh, a bit of a whiff, but it did look like the Cromwell was going backwards. In this kind of a matchup, when you're dealing with Tier 8 tanks and Tier 7 tanks, the FV304 just doesn't really feel like it has the penetration to deal with the better armor against the higher tier tanks. However, there are some glass cannons on the enemy team, like the Su130 PM and also the Borsig. Maybe we're going to be seeing a little bit more of that later on in this game. So whenever you're playing artillery, it's always this kind of fine balance between should you wait for a player to get spotted again, or should you aim at a new target? And I'm really interested to see how Marin decides to play. So instead of aiming at the Su130, although arguably he can't even fire that far, because you can only fire 500 meters and the Su-130 PM is about 570 meters away, Marin decides to keep shooting at the T-25 AT. Looks like a clean shot there from above. Alright, so I guess Marin's kind of trying to weigh up where they think that their best defense is going to be. Sitting up here with a Challenger on a very low amount of hit points, trying to hold back a T-25 AT and an Su-130 PM, no thanks. Looks like Marin wants to try and go towards the south of this map where there's more vehicles and possibly more chance to be protected. Just look how crazy the speed of this vehicle is. I wonder if this thing can even use a turbocharger. Not that it even really needs it, right? 72 kilometers an hour is absolutely outrageous for any vehicle, let alone this absolute little troll of a self-propelled gun. I remember back before the artillery nerfs just how much I despised this tank, and even with the artillery nerfs, I still despise it. I hate being harassed around buildings, around corners, over ridge lines. This thing just hits you so reliably if, I guess, you are a bit of a stationary target. But sometimes, you know, you have to hide behind cover because you're trying to avoid the tank destroyers or the medium tanks or the heavy tanks that are trying to engage you. Alright, so in this situation, Marin's team is now down by 2,000 hit points and 2 tanks. Marin is letting the Pantera know that they're going to try and assist them, I guess hoping that the Pantera is going to try and spot the Super Hellcat, and there we go. And what happens when a British self-propelled gun hits a vehicle with practically no armor? Well, it tracks the Super Hellcat in place, who quickly uses their repair kit, and 200 damage later, that Super Hellcat is not looking too well. Now, a good swing there, but a bit of a miss against the Super Hellcat. Marin is constantly asking the chat to be able to spot for him. And oh, that's the dream, right? A self-propelled gun with no armor that's 2 tiers higher than you, and even your paltry amount of penetration this vehicle has, 28 to be exact, will be enough to be able to go through this vehicle if you hit it in a fairly clean shot. And there we go.
Enemy armor destroyed.
Slam dunk as Marin turns Scrapper into just a bunch of scrap on the enemy team. And suddenly, this game is starting to look a lot closer. But looks like Marin made the correct choice earlier on in the battle to avoid the Su-130 PM, as that flank has now fallen. You could argue that maybe Marin would have been able to hold the Su-130 PM back, supporting the Challenger, I believe, that was up there on a low amount of hit points. But also, when you're a one-shot for a vehicle like that in the form of the Su-130 PM, I don't think that probably would have been the right choice. And I think Marin has done a much better job by coming across towards the south. Alright, so double the hit points on the enemy team and still 2 tanks up. But with 2 minutes left on the game, it's starting to become a little bit more dubious whether the enemy team are going to be able to cap this one. Marin's got a hard decision here. Does he go for the cap circle or does he go for the Su-130 PM? And it looks like he's going to try and slam dunk that tier 8 SPG. Going to fire one blind here, expecting the SU to be able to turn. Whether that hits or not remains to be seen, but it looks like Marin has got a very skilled commander, as you would expect, having played 1,500 games in this vehicle. Also has sound detection on the FV304, allowing him to know when the artillery are going to try and shoot at him, so he can try and evade. Now, sound detection, I'm not going to try and pretend like it's an amazing skill to take in World of Tanks. The commander is already highly pressured as it is, and you're probably best to take most of the other skills. Sound detection is also quite bad because the sound, if you use your headphones, you can actually still hear when the artillery fire at you, and so you don't need the visual notification around your reticle. Okay, so Marin has decided that he wants to try and leave the enemy's forces who are pushing in to try and find Marin in the Challenger. But that sound, what does that make you realize about when you're playing on Assault? As Marin now finds themselves in a 1 versus 6 scenario, and if they can survive for 48 seconds and the enemy don't cap, then they're going to take this game down. But before that, he's got to try and deal with 2 self-propelled guns on the enemy team. Just drives straight at the M12, fires at them at 52 kilometers an hour, can't stop right now, or the Super Hellcat's going to be able to catch them, and gets up in the face of the Su-8, rams them for 38 received damage and 55 damage dealt to the Su-8, and now with 23 seconds left on the game, all Marin has to do is to be able to avoid the tank destroyers and the quite slow heavy tanks and the medium tank that's to all intents and purposes a heavy tank from being able to get to them. And it looks like with the spot. Marin fires up in the air in celebration, but now we hear the shells whizzing to the left, whizzing to the right, and oh my word, just like that, did we just see a Kolobanov's medal in a self-propelled gun? Yeah, wow, wow indeed. I obviously see that Marin is a person of absolute style here with the way that they've decided to embellish their FV304. And it looks like, while you can still try and nerf self-propelled guns as much as you want, once you've got clearly a very dedicated self-propelled gun player, that's the last thing that you're going to be able to nerf in World of Tanks. So an ace tanker here for Marin Bishop in the FV304, and they receive the one that everybody wants, the Kolobanov's medal for standing alone against at least 5 opponents, in this case 6, although it was more of a case of just try to stay alive for as long as possible. It's a bit of a cop-out, I know. It's not a Kolobanov's medal where the self-propelled gun has managed to actually destroy the last remaining 5 vehicles, but those pretty much only come around about once in a year. And now that self-propelled guns have been nerfed, they're practically impossible. Nevertheless, Marin actually managed to do 1,993 damage this game, putting them on top of both damage and experience, and because this vehicle doesn't fire any premium rounds, a healthy profit. Although 40,000 credits spent on consumable resupply, well, I guess when you want to increase that power to weight ratio to up to near 30 to be able to have that extra speed to avoid the enemy at the end of the game, maybe Marin saw it coming. Unlike, I think, a lot of you probably when you got up this morning thinking, oh my lord, am I actually going to get to see artillery gameplay on QuickyBaby's YouTube channel? Yeah. Anyway, Marin, thank you very much for uploading your replay on the What Replays website. And yeah, all in all, GG. I loved the way that you had to go TD mode against those self-propelled guns at the end of the game, and that close finish with the Super Hellcat. That shot up in the air was pretty cheeky, by the way. And after seeing how proficient you are in these self-propelled guns, I really hope I'm not going to be seeing you on the enemy team later. Anyway, ladies and gents, boys and girls, that was it for today. Really hope you enjoyed this one. If you did, give it a thumbs up. If you hated it, give it a thumbs down. And if you're watching this video as it goes live on Sunday, on Halloween, then it's time for the World of Tanks Tech Tree Showcase later on today. And I'm going to be playing in the UDES 1516, a hard-hitting, hull-down Swedish monster. And considering that it's Halloween, I decided to do something a little bit of fun. I've got a list of trick tanks, and I've got a list of treat tanks. Some of them, yeah, I think you can see why this is a bit of a trick list and a treat list. I'm going to be spinning the wheel and playing some absolute stinkers and playing some absolute glorious vehicles as well. So, yeah, really looking forward to seeing all of you live right now on twitch.tv/QuickyBaby. And as always, thank you so much for watching. You've been epic, and hopefully I'll see you soon.